minutes is our after-church discussion with Kyle Jones. We got about a half hour or so. So would anybody have a question to follow up? Yes, there's one right there.
There we go.
My name is David, and I would like to ask you how you would compare your own spiritual life with those that belong to one of the three main traditional Western religions, Islamic faith, Christianity, Jewish faith. Do you, how do you consider yourself more or less the same spiritual as people of those faiths?
No, I lack all spirituality. I mean, that's a little straightforward there. I don't have any spiritual views.
So maybe I'm not, okay, maybe I am not, I guess that's clear to me. Well, I would be curious, there's a mysteriousness.
Yeah, like a sense of awe or wonder.
Right.
Sure.
Life is a beautiful thing.
Yes.
One of the most clear miracles for me is childbirth, period. That's it. Party's over. And I don't believe in the God on
the party is over.
you know,
and your life.
Right. Well, I don't believe in the God on the throne thing. But is there some force out there that creates life? I don't know.
Yeah,
anyway,
I get what you're getting at, and I think there is a sense in which atheists can have what might remotely be close to spirituality, just naturalistic, right? So when you say spirituality, you think of spirits and ghouls and ghosts and otherworldly type things out floating about, right? You think of Beetlejuice, you know. Well, I think of Beetlejuice, but you know, so you think of spirits, right? Pneumos or pneumas, and we don't believe. And generally, I know, and atheists don't believe in anything spiritual, like it's just material, physical reality, right? But do I have a sense of awe and wonder and maybe even mystery? Absolutely. This thing called existence is mind-boggling. It's how is there something as opposed to nothing? It's an existential quandary. And when we were driving up here, Mount Shasta or whatever, and seeing the lakes and the river and I mean, it's stunning. And so, of course, I stand in awe and am mesmerized by it, but I don't think that has any spiritual connotation. So,
Thank you.
Now the smart question.
No, this is a dumb question.
This is the woman who is judging me for drinking decaf. Can we just point that out? Okay.
I want to know if you're one of the people who disapproves of the creche at Christmas.
Oh, the creation in public places, like in malls and stuff?
It seems to me that the people who disapprove of that are in the far minority compared to Christians who want it, yet the minority wins. And they get taken down, and that offends me. But I guess I don't count. I don't mean me personally. I know there's lots of me's.
Yeah.
Like those kind of things at holidays.
Yeah, well, if it's on private land, I think anyone can do whatever they want on private land. If you're talking about on public, city-owned, state-owned land, I don't think the government is in the job to be promoting any one religion over another. Now, if there is a nativity scene, there should also be equal access for any religion, pagans, Wiccans, Buddhists, Muslims, to erect their symbols too. If it's an open and everyone can bring it policy, good. If it's a government endorsing Christianity and saying, no, you can't the Satanists can't put their monument up too, then that's the government preferencing one religion over another, and I don't think that's a good
But
thing.
I assume you would have nothing to put up because you don't believe in Christmas.
Well, I could put up an atomic swirl. I could, yeah, but the point being that you, for instance, let's say would you be okay with the Muslim holiday Eid, them erecting their symbols in the same public places during their holidays? As long as you...
It would not offend me.
Yeah, see, that's good. See, because you're being consistent there. As long as you're saying you
Well,
want...
I wouldn't put it up in my yard, but I don't expect someone to tell me to take it down from my yard. The same thing, this doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about, really, but
Yeah.
the flag business, where people are told to take their American flags down. Ridiculous.
I'm not in a position to tell anyone to take any
Well,
flag down. Yeah, I'm not for censoring religion. I'm for religious freedom. Am I skeptical of a government endorsing one particular religion over another? Yes.
Well, is it the government endorsing it if the people in the library put a crash up in front of the library?
What message does that send to non-adherents? To people who aren't Christian, what message does that send?
That the Christians are celebrating something.
That a state, tax-funded place is preferencing one religion over another. Are they also putting Buddhist stuff up and Muslim stuff up, or
If
even...
there are Buddhists and Muslims who want to put it up, I'm sure they would.
Okay, well, we can keep going. Hey, and by the way, that is not a dumb question. That's a very serious and real question.
Hi. I have a question. My son's been a proclaimed atheist since he was probably 4. And
Wow, 4?
Yeah, I mean, this kid.
He's a smart guy, huh?
Yeah. But anyway, and I've always been very supportive that, honestly, I don't care what you believe. My goal for you as your parent is to help build a compassionate, human who cares for those around him and takes responsibility for this world. And he's done that in spades, and he's 16 now. And he's been hugely active in our youth group here.
Okay.
And anytime there's a soup kitchen that needs staffing, he's one of the first to sign up.
That's awesome.
But one of the things that I wonder, and this is one of my concerns for him, is, I think one of the things that's been so great about Southminster is you can be on the teetering edge of Christianity and still be fine here.
Yeah.
But I long for him communities that are value-driven, that focus on making a difference and preserving this world and helping each other and working towards peace and end of poverty.
Yeah.
What kinds are there developing structured pieces in that realm for people who don't believe in God?
Yeah, that's a good question. Organized atheism for social issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are. I'd list a few. I'd say the American Humanist Association. They're a fantastic organization that does all kinds of charity work. Foundation Beyond Belief is a huge charity that does stuff in Africa and other places. I could list to you like 5 or 6 different organizations that are atheist or secular that do these kind of good things. There's not as many, right? Because there's just not as many atheists. So you're not gonna, right? You're gonna see it proportion to the amount of factual atheists there are in the world. So it's not as much as, say, World Vision, right? But there are plenty of atheist groups that do good charitable work, whether it's dealing with issues of climate change, whether it's dealing with social justice, reproductive freedoms, you name it, same-sex marriage. There's lots of these groups that are on the forefront of all of those. One thing is that a lot of atheists don't want to get involved with them. I mean, not because they dislike them, but because it takes energy, and they have their lives and their 9-to-5s and their kids, and so it takes energy. But they're there. They're there.
This will trade. All right. So my question is similar, and so I have a couple of friends who are atheists, big fans of Richard Dawkins and all that. But one thing that they say that they both admit that they would love to have that they don't have in their life is a sense of community of atheists that are like-minded, but they're up to works like you were talking about. And I'm wondering, so I have two questions. One is there any movement for that, number one? And number two, when, in terms of you being here and being interviewed by other churches, is that part of what your hope is or goal is, or to eventually, it seems like, so here's my take. My take is that by speaking with the Christians, you're bridging the gap
Yes.
between the two.
Yeah.
So there's more understanding. So it's not so polarized. And but there's also part of wondering: is there a part of you hoping or wanting or moving forward, or wanting to see atheists have that sense of community, like-minded, maybe less anger from the Richard Dawkins mindset, but more of a compassionate sense of community and up to doing things. So.
Absolutely. So there is a sense, and I felt this when I deconverted. I felt a huge sense of loss, because I was surrounded in a Christian community that, checked up to see if I was okay, if I was sick, or if I needed something, or if I could have all these people, right, to help. And life is so much easier when you are surrounded in a community of people that care about you. So that was a big sense of loss. And I think atheists feel this a lot, yeah. Now there are groups, like meetup.com. If you go to meetup.com right now and you type in Portland Atheist or Portland Human, there's going to be a weekly or bi-weekly meeting of atheists and humanists. And it may be going to a bar, having some beers and talking shop. It may be working at a food pantry or a soup kitchen or something like that. So they're out there. But it's been a slow process, especially over the last 20 years, building these active communities. And I'd like to see more of that. That's not necessarily my thing, though. Like, my thing is I want to bridge these gaps. Like, my goal isn't out to build atheism. Like, some other atheists, that's their agenda, is to create more atheists. Fine, they can do that all they want. Christians can want more Christians, atheists can want more atheists. I don't care about that. I care about, if there are atheists and there are Christians and there are Muslims, then let's bridge these gaps and find ways to work together.
Yeah.
So I don't know how directly that's addressing your question.
No, you actually answered it specifically and clearly. I do have a follow-up to that, and that is the branding of the Richard Dawkins people.
Yes.
I find I find it to be no different than the radical Christians. I see it the flip side, that it's one of the other. It's the flip side of the same coin.
Yeah.
You got the Christians who say, this is my rigid way of thinking. You got the atheists that are like Richard Dawkins. This is my, those are magical thinking people. We're not, there is no God, which is just as magical thinking in my opinion, because they don't know. So my question then is, it seems to me, I'm thinking in terms of what you're saying, like the softer Christian, the softer atheist.
Yes. I think humanist might be a better
humanist
term. Yeah.
What was my question about that? I hate when I give so much context and then I lose my question.
It happens to all of us. It does. The spark fades with age, my friend. I'm just kidding. You
aware of that.
Firebrand atheists, Dawkins, new atheists, softer atheists.
Yeah, I'm wondering if is there anyone out there? I guess that's sort of part of the tied to the question. I just can't nail it the same one. But are there movements in more of a softer version?
Absolutely.
Where, because I think it's this hardcore militant experience I have of Dawkins.
Yep.
That actually it's not that I even disagree. I mean, I disagree to a point, but the softer, I think, would be more inclusive.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be easier for Christians who are more conservative to at least be able to hear them, potentially.
Absolutely.
If theirs came from a softer place.
Yeah, and I think some of that is just the methods of communication too. Like, if I speak to you, a lot of it is how you say what you say.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Like, if I don't believe in God, I don't think there's any evidence for God. But if I just go around, I can convey that in two different ways.
Right.
I could say, you guys are ridiculous for believing there's a God. There's no evidence for it, you fools. Right?
Yeah.
Or I could be like, I just don't find any evidence. You do. Let's try to work things out.
Right.
And so there's a method, a manner of communication that I think helps a lot.
Thank you.
Well, I guess that was going to be my question, is I have a few friends too who are very much kind of like you described it. Well, you just do magical thinking. You don't have any evidence. You just sit out there and talk to some imaginary God and it doesn't do anything, but
Yes.
And so I want to have a conversation with these people. I want to be able to say, and I do, I try, and I have to say I get more respect than some that they attack that are conservative Christians who just kind of go back up with the same kind of wall.
Yes.
But I still don't get much ground. And so as a liberal, progressive Christian, what can I say to them to not have them just look at me and say, well, you're an idiot because you believe in an imaginary being that talks to you?
Yeah.
Because I don't believe in God that way, but...
Yeah. I think part of it is possibly fleshing out what you mean too. Because what my more militant comrades have in mind a particular type of Christianity, and they're unfortunately guilty of often lumping all Christians under this banner of the fundamentalists. The fundamentalist has Christianity right, and progressives have Christianity wrong, right? You cherry pick, you don't value the Bible enough, you're wishy-washy, you kumbaya, you want to hold hands, blah, 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 right? But the thing that I tell my atheist friends is progressive and liberal Christians are way more nuanced in their views of things than the literalist, fundamentalist, conservative Christian. They're not the same, right? They're very different. And part of that is, I had someone come up to me after this and say, look, I don't believe in the sky daddy. I believe in like Tillich's notion of God as like the ground being, like the fount from which all things come. An atheist isn't going to respond to that with that much hostility, right? Like, okay, go, all right, or even if you equate God with the natural world or the universe or whatever, right? God is a symbol for our infinite compassion that we should have, well, whatever, right? But to break down to them possibly that you don't believe in a sky daddy will help, right? So, but then again, there are those atheists where it's just like, good luck to you. I don't really have much I can give you. If you take the label Christian, they're gonna already assume, your work's all ahead of you. So good luck. And once again, compassion and so.
This is really not a hypothetical question, but if you and your atheist friend were invited to come to this place, our church, and be a part of it, could that happen?
I absolutely hope so.
Okay.
I've set up a few pastors and atheists, and to this day, the atheist attends church on Sunday. It's for the last 2 years. There's been a couple of those. And they're also still friends with the pastors afterward. Like, they still go out and, have lunch or whatever. But some of them have actually started attending the churches. That does happen. Not all of them, but you know, probably a small percentage. But yeah, that has happened. And for me, there's no problem in that. You know, if it helps them build community, like you were saying, you know, this kind of sense of lack of community, and they're inclusive and progressive, and they allow that space for you to be there with them, all the better. Why the hell not? You know, this isn't some brainwashing facility, you know, and atheists think that though. Like, they think what you're doing here is like Scientology. You know? Like, or right? They think it's this cultish brainwashing. And I want to dispel that myth. And there are, don't get me wrong, there are very insular, scary, frightening churches. Very, like, ones I do not want to step inside. And if I do, I hope the proverbial lightning strikes and burns the thing down, right? But generally speaking, churches are not this way. And if they do that, then they end up attending the church, then great.
Community, just like you're saying, reaching out to others who think differently. Like, I have a sense of that at this Presbyterian church. I'm about ready to walk the plank and become a member of this place. But as I met Pastor John, I said, I'm agnostic, so leaning atheist, raised fundamentally, son of a Nazarene minister.
Ooh.
And so I deconstructed a lot.
Yeah.
And then I came out as a gay homosexual man, and so I just said pooey on all of that because most of that is destroying my life.
Yeah.
And so being in the world of nature, being in the world of poverty, being involved with social justice, those all made me feel good.
Yeah.
But I wasn't connecting, I wasn't building my own grassroots type of thing. So I feel like I can be at home here, be agnostic as I want to, but with gentle heart. Open,
Yeah.
the warm heart, I think, is really how we survive as humanists throughout the world anyway.
Yeah.
I loved the parable this morning about the farmers. That's the world I want to live in. And so you coming, Kyle, today just affirms that I can survive well here. I can be a faithist, and I don't want to be fake.
Yeah.
But because I like the music, I like the words give comfort because I've been raised in that.
Sure.
It's hard to erase it because I remember, a song will come on and it just resonates with my heart and my soul.
Yeah.
And I may die at the end of all this and there's no other place to go.
Yeah.
So along with the phrase of Sky Daddy, the same person that used that word taught me another one. Don't spend all of your time at one booth, go to the entire carnival. There's a lot out there.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming to us today.
Oh no, thank you. That's an amazing story, especially for this church. Just in relationship to this church. That's a fantastic story because I love hearing that. I love hearing that there are these progressive Christian communities that are safe havens and sites that you can go to after experiencing trauma, right? Like from religious fundamentalism. Like they can be a way to nurture and care for you when similar structures failed. And that's, to me, that's a very, John's probably giddy as all hell hearing that. That's a great thing. I had some lady, tell the truth, I had a lady come up here. I almost lost it. I don't cry often. I got that tough exterior, right? Right? I almost lost it because she was like, I've had this image of atheists and what you just did right now, I totally go like, it's like God spoke to me and kind of told me that atheists are just these people and need love, and I was just like, oh God, you hit me hard, but it's one of those things, yeah, absolutely, having that soft, that gushy insides.
Just have one question. How do you talk to agnostics?
Like this guy right here?
Or me?
Or you? Oh, okay. How do I talk to them? Meaning, how do I view agnosticism? or agnostics. I have absolutely no issue with agnostics. I mean, I was agnostic for a while during my deconversion, and I just kind of went, I don't know. I have no clue. I don't think people can know, and I don't. So, if there's a probability or a possibility that God does exist, and a possibility that God doesn't, that's fine to me. I am of the assumption that it's very, very, very unlikely that God exists. So I'm not a positive atheist, like 100% sure that there is no God. I just think it's very, very unlikely. Now, once again, it gets to this term God. If by God we mean the universe, then I believe in God, because I believe that the universe exists, like Einstein or Spinoza's God. If you're defining God as the ground of being or the fount from which all things arise, I have less of a problem with that. But if your idea of God is a thinking, willing, and acting, invisible being that is separate from the world, outside of space and time, is omnipotent, omniscient, created the world, sustains the world, intervenes in the world miraculously, I am an atheist toward that God. Right? And the quick clever thing that a lot of us say is, Christians and other people are all atheists about many gods. Atheists just go one God further. I mean, you don't believe in Zoroaster or Ahura Mazda. You don't believe in Shiva or exactly. You're an atheist about those gods. Atheists just go one more.
Okay, I don't know for sure where I am. I
Like
don't
geographically? Joking.
Well, I'll get my iPhone out, they'll tell me where I am today. Belief to me is not as important as faith. Belief is up here, faith is down here. And the reason I lean more towards faith, I'm a biologist, an ecologist by profession.
Okay.
And as an ecologist, I realize that nature has created, through evolution, a system whereby I'm important, my family is more important, so I can pass on my genes, but that foreigner, that stranger is not important. In fact, I should probably reject that stranger. And to hear that an atheist is altruistic seems to me almost in lack of acknowledgement of the fact that if there is no God, where did this culture come from? How did our society become one that's so altruistic? And I'll admit that not all Christians are altruistic. Some of them are pretty tight-knit, and it's my society versus your society type people.
Sure.
But the concept that people outside of my gene pool are important and worth serving, the fact that my life, which is so short, should be committed to serving others rather than piling things up for myself. To me, this is contrary to the nature of evolution. And so I don't have a good explanation for somebody who is outside of the sphere of God to, why do they do these good things? They should be just piling up things for themselves or their own little group.
That's a good question. I would, once again, only have a naturalistic explanation for that, and that would be that there's a big debate about altruism, as you know. I think I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I'm not a big fan of the notion of altruism because I think it's a good thing to derive pleasure from helping people. I don't believe a self can do something selfless. That's a contradiction. If you're a self, you do not do anything selfless. Everything you do is self-full. Now, Whether there's a difference between me stockpiling like Donald Trump and being selfish and greedy and whatever, and me being like, I don't know, Bill Gates or something, just giving it all away. But both, I don't think either of them do those things without their interests in mind. I think it's good to do things with your interests in mind. And hopefully your interests are to help people. So anyway, that's a whole big thing about altruism. But how can we explain that humans have evolved and created cultures and social contracts by which they negate some of their lesser desires for the sake of others outside of their gene pool? I think a lot of that has to do with just human constructions of laws and society and civilization and social environment, and those mitigate our lesser angels, our more nasty desires. Right? We're culturally influenced, socially influenced. And so I think the nature-nurture thing, right? So the nurture part is counteracting some of our natural parts. And that's probably good. I'm not a scientist at all. So hat tip to you in terms of understanding this better than I. But the answer to me is that this is just, people have done this. Humans have done this. Why? Why questions are difficult, my friend. Why? Why is demanding too high? It's too high of a. When you ask a why question, it's too grand. It's almost like asking why is there something as opposed to nothing, or why do we experience meaning? I don't have an answer to that, and I distrust anybody that has an answer to that. I would, with Douglas Adams, I would say 42 would equally be a sufficient answer, because I have no damn idea.
And I don't want to suppose
Sorry
that
for going on.
I have the idea, but I have a piece of information that I think points to what you were saying, though, and that is, I'm a social worker, so I've studied what social sciences, and we know that if people are depressed, they get value and they improve when they help other people.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a self-serving interest.
Yes.
Because they do that to make themselves better, but for whatever reason, and again, that's the why, I don't know why that is.
Yeah.
But it's been documented that it works.
Yes.
So that looking at yourself, I'm depressed, I can't get out of this hole, but I go and help somebody else out of a hole, and suddenly I feel better.
Yes.
And then that's the part in society that if we could do more of.
Yes, and
We
it's
lift
good.
everybody up.
It's good that you feel better
Yes.
for doing that.
Yes.
That's a positive thing.
And the other quick thing I would say is I just recently saw a video where a rhinoceros saved a baby zebra out of a mud hole in Africa.
Yeah.
And so there's kind of anomalies of things doing that
Yes.
that might not fit the standard science. I'm not a scientist either, so I really can't say that for sure, but it would seem to me that there are things like that, and you see videos all the time of, you know, a cat raising a rabbit, or,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
where there are times when even nature goes outside the norm
Sure.
to do something nice,
Yes.
or protective, or caring.
Sure. That's a good point.
Okay, time for another question. Here we go. Julie will probably get the last word.
Oh, again.
The first shall be last.
For a long time, this church has had kind of a motto, the church where you don't check your brain at the door.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of struck with the overwhelming or underwhelming thought that permeates here, and that is that it doesn't much matter what you believe. You can fall anywhere in the spectrum in this church, and you'll be fine. And you may change from month to month, and something may happen when you go to one or the other. And it doesn't matter, because people are accepted for part of the community, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's really enlightening hearing what you had to say, and just kind of opening the doors and hearing more about it, you know, and getting it out there in public. But
No, thank you.
thank you for being here.
It's a great community. Your beliefs don't make you a better person, your actions do.
Exactly.
So, Although I do believe some beliefs are better than others.
I do too. There are some bad beliefs.
Yes.
And I think that's one thing we didn't, I'm just ask a question, you know, that sometimes with Christians, we treat religion a little bit with kid gloves, especially when religion does some bad things. And it's important for progressive Christians, you know, to counteract some of that stuff, creationism, or anti-LGBT issues based on the Bible, or all those kinds of things. And sometimes it's important for, what I find with atheists is they make me be honest. Is they make me also say, hey, wait a second, we do have to take some stands here. These folks are representing who we are.
Yeah.
And it's important to be critical of some bad beliefs.
Yes,
As
absolutely.
people would say, yeah.
Yeah, like you had mentioned all the women being kidnapped and raped and whatever by ISIS, and then you have, like, for instance, a lot of my Muslim friends going, that is not Islam. That is not it. And then there's some interesting things about how little the members of ISIS know about the Quran. How very little they know about the Quran. And so yeah, you don't want them representing Islam, as you don't want Jerry Falwell representing, or Pat Robertson representing Christianity. And that's the thing. That's the one thing I love about liberal progressive Christianity compared to fundamentalism, is that you're saying they can't own the story of what it means to be a Christian. They don't